Morning everyone, welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. We've got one matter on the agenda today, which is an application in relation to KFC on Elgar Retail Park. Members, could I ask you to elect a chair, please?
Okay, thank you. Okay, first thing on the agenda is we'll just introduce ourselves. We'll go around the table. We'll start with you, Jenny, and we'll go this way.
Jenny Barnes, Councillor. Jenny Barnes, Councillor for St John's Ward.
I'm Councillor Louis Stephen for Batton Hall Ward in Worcester.
Hannah Cooper, City Councillor for Arboretum Ward.
Charlotte Pidgeon, I'm the legal advisor to the committee today.
I'm Gilda Sarah, a local councillor for the ward, but today here as a member of the public, effectively, to object.
Graham Mowbray, Worcestershire Regulatory Services, presenting a report to the committee today.
Hi, my name's Sophie Hyde. I'm the covering restaurant manager for Worcester Elgar Retail Park.
I'm Nick Landales from Tuttle Snellan Solicitors, here to present the application.
Hi, my name's Harj. I'm the area manager for KFC.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a short statement. Presentations to the subcommittee are not given under oath. However, I should like to remind all parties that the highest standards are expected, and any deviation from these high standards could possibly influence any decision of the subcommittee. So I'm just going to remind everybody about your right to have legal representation. I see you obviously got legal representation. Same would apply, I guess, for the representations. You have a councillor here doing that. Fine. So the first proper item on the agenda then is for our licensing officer to present the case that we're going to be considering today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of the hearing is, as Charlotte explained, to consider and determine an application for a premises licence, the grant thereof, for KFC Elgar Retail Park, Blackpool in Worcester. The application seeks to provide to authorise the provision of late night refreshment between 11 in the evening until 2 o'clock in the morning every day. Two representations about the application were made during the statutory consultation from members of the public, and one by ward councillor acting on behalf of residents. The representations refer to the detrimental impact that granting the licence would have on the licensing objectives stated in the Licensing Act, and that it would add to existing problems in the vicinity of the premises. Because relevant representations have been made about the application, a licence cannot be issued by officers under delegated powers, and the matter is therefore referred to the committee for determination. Doing that, obviously, Charlotte will have advised you, but the members should be aware of the content of the application, the report before you, representations received before and during the hearing, evidence presented today, the Licensing Act, guidance on the Licensing Act, and the Council's own policy on the Licensing Act, implementation thereof. So, yeah, the report's before you for your consideration and determination. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification from our side? No? Your side? Would you like to clarify or any issues you'd like to raise at this point? Councillor Sarah? No? Legal? No, fine. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item, which is where you're going to be presenting your case. I agree that we've made an understanding that you can have 15 minutes, and that'll be 15 minutes for both sides. It's over to you now to present your case, and then after that we'll have a period of asking questions and a little bit more discussion, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. So this is an application that's been highlighted somewhat unusually in a application for premise licence. This is an application for one licensable activity only, which is the late night refreshment between 2300 and 0200. The application contained 9 conditions which will bite effectively throughout all trading hours. It talks about CCTV. This CCTV system is not switched on at 2300. That will be operational throughout all trading hours, as will a member of staff be there at all trading hours to download any images. The incident log that we refer to and the staff training, of course, those don't just kick in at 2300. They're throughout the trading hours, and the conditions put forward to prevent public nuisance will again not be magically switched on at 2300. They too will be throughout trading hours. And importantly, and I think it addresses one of the concerns of the residents, that no fumes, steams or odours shall be emitted from the licensed premises so as to cause a nuisance to any persons living in the vicinity. And I'll come back to that in a few moments. The application properly submitted was, of course, referred to each of the responsible authorities, including the licensing authority. They will have decided, or they have decided, through knowledge of the area, through knowledge of a similar premises operating adjacent to this at McDonald's, through knowledge of the applicant through its premises at Hornhill Road, which also operates until 2 o'clock. The responsible authorities have decided not to make any representations, and the committee is invited to take weight from that. The applicant company is a large franchisee of Kentucky Fried or KFC. They have 40 franchises throughout the Western East Midlands, many of whom operate with premise licenses, many of whom operate till 2 a.m. and some of which operate till all the way through the day, 24 hours a day, effectively. The applicant company also has 25 hotels and 15 restaurants other than KFCs, and so they're a very experienced operator. We employ plus or minus 35 local people. Nobody travels a long distance to work in quick service restaurants. Many of our staff live in the Blackpool area. This application, should it be granted, will mean that there will be at least 5 members of staff working in the additional hours. So there will be some additional hours for existing staff, and there will be some job creation, all of whom will come from the local area, as the current staff bank do. In fact, 2 of our members of staff actually live on Masons Drive, so they're very, very local and walk to work. With the additional hours, should this application be granted, there will be effectively about £85,000 worth of earned income going into the local economy. Many of the people who work in the restaurant are entering the workforce for the first time, many of them paying their way through school, through college, through university, or people who need additional jobs. So it's an important economic benefit to the area. And whilst that does not override local residents' amenity, it is a factor that the licensing authority are now invited under the Section 182 guidance to take into account, as well as the 4 licensing objectives. The restaurant has been there since around 2005 and is in a very commercial, on the very commercial side of Blackpool Road. It's part of the retail park, adjacent to another retail park. Diagonally opposite is a supermarket, Lidl, and adjacent to the supermarket there is another one, Sainsbury's. The Blackpool housing estate is over the road from the retail park, and this is true of all urban areas, that the tourists are living effectively cheap by jowl, in the sense that there's a residential area and a commercial area right next door to each other, as is the case for all urban areas. The later hours being sought now are indicative of the fact that now the world is changing. People are often staying at home. They are shift workers in and around the area who go home and wish to order late night refreshment through Uber Eats, Deliveroo, and wish the deliveries to be taken from the restaurant for them to their homes in the local area. Fast food does not travel far. We are serving the local community. If the demand from the local community were not there, we would not be making this application. And that will be the same, I think, for McDonald's, who are able to open 24 hours a day and seemingly do so without any problems, because the police would have raised issues there and would potentially have raised issues in this application of problems that they would have encountered from McDonald's opening 24 hours. The fact that they haven't brought anything to the table suggests that they are not concerned by any antisocial behaviour in and around the car park. And again, the police will be aware of this applicant because of their operation at Hornhill Road, which is also open till 2 a.m. and has been for 6 months. From 2300, and so effectively when this premise licence will kick in, the application, and there's a condition that, sorry, there isn't a condition, the drive-through window will be the only way that members of the public will be able to access late night refreshment. Delivery drivers will come to a special delivery door, and they will collect their orders from there, but the dining room itself won't be open. The impact of that is essential, I think, to the local residents in the sense that delivery drivers turn up, collect their orders, depart the car park very, very quickly. They're there for the minimum amount of time because they wish to get their food to their customers as quickly as they possibly can. The only entry to the retail park is off Blackpoll Road. They will traverse the car park, collect the orders, and enter back onto Blackpoll Road, which is a busy arterial route through the area. There is no evidence at the moment that the people congregate on the car park. The car park's open till the current restaurant hours, 2300. There's no evidence that there are any issues of people congregating on the car park. The police could have raised, or environmental protection could have raised issues of people congregating on car parks if they thought that that would be an issue. They're aware that McDonald's, it's not a problem there. They're aware of the fact that KFC at Hornhill, it is not an issue there either. As part of a comment made by a resident is that the restaurant is in very close proximity to residential premises. It's important to note that the division between the two is actually quite wide in an urban setting. There is a raised shrubbery planting bank between the drive-through window of the restaurant and Blackpoll Road. There's the pavement, there's the width of Blackpoll Road itself, there's a raised bank on the opposite side of Blackpoll Road, and then there's mature trees on both sides and fencing. So the premises are actually quite separated from each other. So it's overstating it to suggest that this is a residential area. It is not exclusively a residential area. There's very commercial on one side, residential on the other, and further along Blackpoll Road, there are very commercial areas on both sides of the premises, or both sides of the road, I should say. The residents complain or bring within their representations various issues which I would just like to address now. Firstly, I would say that there's never been any complaints directly made to the restaurants, and so these letters of representations are the first time that the restaurant is aware of some of these issues. There's notation that the drive-through tannoy is audible inside bedrooms. The drive-through tannoy is on the opposite side of the restaurant to the residents. The restaurant building itself is in between, and then there's a significant difference. However, there's a very simple fix to that problem, and I would repeat, this is the first time we've heard about it. There's a nighttime setting. We can turn the volume down, and we would offer a condition that we do that. And if that is not sufficient, we can actually adjust the way the operation happens from 2300, so that the first drive-through window is where the order is taken, and it will just be two voices speaking to each other. There will be no amplification of that. And then the order will be collected from the second window. So the drive-through tannoy should not be an issue. We can deal with that either by a condition that the volume is turned down or by adjusting how the orders are taken. I would propose a condition maybe that says from 2300 each day, the volume of the external drive-through communication system will be set at such a volume to ensure that it would not constitute an unreasonable nuisance to neighbouring properties, something along those lines. There's comments about people congregating, about revving engines, about late night disturbance from people congregating on the car park. At no stage in the process does anybody get out of their car. They go through the drive-through window. The drive-through lane is by design very narrow to ensure cars have to crawl through it and they have to make 2 turns. Nobody gets out of their car. There's no opening and closing of doors. The collection window for delivery drivers is on the opposite side of the building from local residents. So again, that issue should not arise from there. Cooking odours, the application has an enforceable condition that no fumes or smells will be detectable by local residents, of course, because it's an enforceable condition. Breach of that condition, as well as being a criminal offence and being punishable through the criminal courts, is also an enforceable action under the licensing process. And so breach of that condition would be quite significant to our client, and they're very happy to offer that condition and did from day one. We should be aware of that. The light pollution, there's comment about cars and their headlights being visible throughout in some of the residential premises. We're not 100% clear where in the car park that may be coming from. And so if there's any clarification that could be brought to that, then we would certainly see if we can address other issues. But there's 2 things we can offer straight away. The drive-through lane has right next to it a raised bank with shrubbery. We can put a fence up on there to ensure that headlights are baffled by that fence, to ensure that the light from that goes no further. There are 2 collection bays, or 2 bays that customers wait in if they're waiting for an order. We will block those off at whatever time the committee think is appropriate for that, to ensure that nobody parks in that bay waiting for food with their headlights potentially filtering out onto Blackpool Road. The additional traffic and associated disturbance at 2 a.m. closing time, it is likely to attract late night custom. We would counter that. The evidence from other premises that the applicant operates is that typically through the later hours, they are getting no more than 10 cars per hour. So that's effectively, if that was 30 cars over a 3-hour shift, that's 30 cars entering onto Blackpool Road. Blackpool Road is a very busy road at all times. There'd be a marginal increase in the amount of traffic moving around at that time of night. The residents also raised the issue of litter, vermin and site management concerns, and there are some photos in the bundle about litter strewn adjacent to litter bins. We would say that that too is a problem for our client. Seeing branded litter on the ground is not good for KFC. They do not wish to see that. They pay rent to their landlord. Their landlord is somewhat tardy occasionally in emptying these bins. What KFC are proposing would be a condition, and we can finesse the wording, but 3 times a day we will go out to those bins and we will collect any litter that is on the floor around those bins, and we would propose once before opening, once after the lunchtime rush, and once then in the evening that we will collect all that litter that is around any bin on Blackpool, or sorry, on the Elgar retail park that the landlord is unable to collect. Whether that's KFC litter or whether it is litter from somewhere else. So we've addressed the issue of odours. We've addressed the issue of light pollution from cars through the baffling of the drive-through, the headlights coming through the drive-through window and people waiting in the collection bay. We've addressed the issue of the tannoy by just saying we will propose a condition that the volume will be turned down from 2300 or whatever time the committee think is the appropriate time for that. We've addressed the issue of litter. We've addressed the issue of traffic. And is there any points you wish to raise at this stage? No. Okay. I'm not sure where I sit within the 15 minutes. I hope I came just.
Okay, great. Questions from our side then. So, would you like to ask a question at this stage?
Yes, I've got two or three. On the cooking odour, currently there has been cooking odour mentioned on some of the complaints. Are you putting in new equipment to prevent? Are you putting in new equipment to prevent any cooking smells in the future, or are you just relying on the level that exists at the moment?
I think we wasn't aware that there was this issue, but obviously part of the application we found obviously there is still an issue. So we can do two things. We can up the monthly routine that we have, because we service them twice a year currently, and we can up that to every quarterly to see if that helps the situation. And again, I'm not sure if that's 100% possible. Just I'm not sure about how that equipment works. But what we can do, I know there is a filtration system in there. If we can clean that more regularly, then that's definitely an option that we're happy and willing to take.
So it's not going to be new equipment. It's just you're going to clean the old equipment that doesn't work at the moment.
I think what Harj and I spoke about earlier is getting the system fully reassessed by the installers to see whether more baffles could be added to it, more filters could be added to it, and then increase the service regime. Again, these representations were the first time that we've been aware that is an issue or is complained about, and so we will do everything we can to ensure that we can comply with the condition that we proposed as part of the application.
Thank you. At the moment, presumably deliveries are being taken from Hornhill. Is that how you're delivering KFC around Worcester at the moment?
That's correct. So they operate through drive-through and delivery. However, the percentage of delivery sales is higher in the evenings than there is people driving to the restaurant. It could be because of the local hospitals and people finishing shifts at different times, but we're not seeing a lot of guests coming to the restaurant. We're actually seeing more deliveries going out.
And I just would add to that that the nature of the franchisor agreement is that each branch can take orders only within a 3-mile radius. Okay. Typically, the further you get to the outer rim of that 3 miles, there are fewer orders because, as I said, fried chicken, fries, milkshakes, etc., don't travel particularly well over longer distances. And so at the moment, where within that 3-mile radius Hornhill can service, they are servicing. So effectively, some of the orders will come and be serviced out of this side should the application be granted, and some will come out of Hornhill, depending, where in that sort of 3-mile radius the order site sits.
And my third question is about the movement of traffic through the site as the order window, then the pickup window. How many cars do you expect to park up in that large car park afterwards? Because you said that you're closing 2 bays immediately by the restaurant, but knowing customers' habits, quite often people will go elsewhere in the car park. How are you going to deal with cars that just park up elsewhere beyond your control?
So, as my colleague and we've already kind of addressed, most of the orders at that time of the evening will predominantly be through delivery. We do not expect to see much footfall through the drive-through. If we base this off the other local restaurant, Worcester Hornhill, approximately no more than between 5 and 10 cars will be proceeding through the drive-through after the hours of 11 o'clock at night. We also don't expect to see that all of those cars will be parking up on the car park to eat, especially in those hours. Most people could be commuting from work in local factories or the hospitals and simply just grabbing food on the way home. The reason we closed the 2 parking bays, they are waiting bays for orders. The reason we've closed that is just to kind of diffuse any light pollution that might directly shine into the residents' houses opposite. So we will have parking available for the guests, but it is worth noting that currently we have AMPR after the hours of 9 o'clock at night, which restricts consumers parking up for more than 30 minutes, and that's to diffuse any antisocial behaviour that could occur on the car park. The gates of the car park will also be closed half an hour after we close from trade, and that is simply to let the workers on the way home leave. So the actual car park is not 24 hours, which means that after the restaurant is closed, we shouldn't see any antisocial behaviour on the car park either.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I've got lots of questions. So first of all, about the bins, I recognise that you don't own the land, so you are reliant on your landlord to clear the bins. I wondered if you were going to put any extra bins on. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've done the same in Hornhill Road. We did add additional bins in. I think the problem we have on this retail park is the landlord, so the pictures of the bins that have been taken are the actual landlord bins, and they're a bit narrower, hence why people are throwing it on the floor. We will try and change some of the ones that the landlord has and put our KFC bins in, which are bigger, wider, which will stop the litter from going in the floor.
Thank you. Can you give me some details about how many bins?
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
expecting?
we can go to as many as we need. You know, I know that sounds really silly, but we'll do whatever we need to do to make sure that obviously the grounds are left clear and there's no rubbish lying around. I suppose my point would be probably to just remove the bins that they're using and put our bins in, because they are more, they're made for this purpose, so you can't throw litter around it. They have a wider gap, which means litter goes actually in the bin and not sit around it. We will also think about putting some additional signage around the restaurant, around, you know, after a certain amount of time, be mindful that we are in a local residence area to keep volumes down, and we're happy to do put some additional signage around the drive-through lane.
I think just to clarify on your question, Councillor, we have a lease. Upon that leased area, we can put as many bins as we wish, and therefore, if you would, you know, we could put 5 additional bins. The second commitment we can make is to approach the landlord to see whether we could put a bin of ours adjacent to a bin of theirs, and there would be space within the car park to enable that to happen. We can't commit that they will say yes to that, of course, but we can commit to asking them if that will be okay. And that would effectively, if we put a like-for-like bin adjacent to theirs, that would double the capacity.
Thank you. Very quickly, quick question. Is your CCTV colour CCTV, please? Thank you. I regularly cycle and walk down Bilford Road, which is at the back of your KFC, and I do smell the fumes from your restaurant during the day. So that concerns me, that if I smell it during the day, that other people will be able to smell it during the evening. So I really would urge you to think about how you can resolve this issue.
Thank you. I mean, again, on that very point, as well as every power under environmental protection legislation currently existing, if this application is granted and an enforceable condition is added, there's more stick, there's more carrot to ensure that is no longer an issue. And it will be, again, not a... the issue will be beneficial. Sorry, the issue will be abated throughout the day, not just through the hours of that the premise licence attaches. And so granting of this application will enable a licensing condition to bite, and will bite at 10 a.m. the same way it would do at 2300.
Thank you. In terms of Uber Eats, they tend to be motorbikes, etc. I was wondering if cycles also could, pedal cycles could also go through the drive-through. I'm thinking again of noise.
Well, just to confirm, the delivery drivers have their own door that they collect their orders from, and so absolutely, e-bikes. And if I was a Uber or a Deliveroo driver, e-bikes are the most efficient way of making more money, and so absolutely they would be able to come. We can't compel them to come using e-bikes, but electric vehicles are also increasingly common amongst the delivery community, because again it's a much more efficient way of fueling your vehicle, and they're significantly quieter than a combustion engine.
Thank you. I sat on the KFC in Hornhill, I remember you had, and I remembered that you were saying again 10 cars per hour. I'm trying to work out the business case for whether this is worth it for just 10 cars an hour in that period. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's not just the 10 cars per hour, it's the additional you take via the delivery aggregators. So there is a trade there. There is extra vacancies and hours available for the team, because it has proven that we're making profit out of opening later.
Okay, so in that case, what you're saying is it's 10 private vehicles per hour you would expect?
Yeah.
So in that case, can you estimate, based on your Hornhill model, how many vehicles would be coming through per hour, please?
Yeah, so I think the ones using the drive-through lane is around 10, but I'd probably say we're something between 17 to 18 additional delivery drivers coming to collect, so that total is something around the 28 per hour after the 11 p.m.
Thank you, that makes more sense. And when we were talking about Hornhill Road, we talked about litter picking, and your manager at the time was very happy to do community litter picks within the neighbourhood. I was wondering if your covering manager would commit to something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they would share their contact details with ward members. So if they saw KFC branded litter, that you would come out and you would do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have been doing so. We've only had one resident that sent a couple of pictures via that email address that we provided them. And we removed the litter and we put pictures back to them to say, look, we've cleared everything that we have. And that is us going out of our way to pick up little bits of litter that had our branding on it, and we were happy to do so. And I did just suggest that to Nick, that's a possibility again.
So perhaps the way that could be addressed would be a condition along the lines of a dedicated email address will be provided to X, and who the X is, we can discuss to, and if an email comes into that the manager will be tasked with sending someone out to the site. And how it works in Hornhill is that a photograph is taken of the litter, they remove the litter, a photograph is taken of the site, the post litter being removed, and that is then sent to the person who has sent in the request for the litter to be removed. Absolutely, as Haj has just mentioned, we would propose that condition if you thought that that was an important one to raise here too. I didn't raise it in my representation only because nobody has raised that as an issue until your question came up, but we're absolutely happy to do that.
Thank you. And my final question, we've got photographic evidence of rats or rodents, there's no scale to see the size of the animal. I was wondering if you can talk me through that, please.
I don't think we can. We don't know where it's not our evidence. I don't know where that photo was taken. I don't know when it was taken. It's a dead rat on the street.
Okay, let me be more clear then. Have you had any problems with rodents at KFC?
So we have a contractor called Ecolab. We have monthly service visits, which services the inside of the building and also the external areas as well. Not only does this monitor pest traps for any pest activity, but we also have recommendations in terms of maintaining shrubbery, any broken damage to the building, any potential pest entry points. If any pest activity was suspected on these visits, it would then be moved to weekly. But we have not had any pest activity in the restaurant, and we have all of the reports that can show that we've not had any pest activity either in the restaurant or around the external areas either.
And when you say external areas, where are you looking, please?
So this is just our demise, so it wouldn't cover the whole of the car park, but it does cover our demise on that car park.
Thank you for the clarification.
And insofar as litter on the ground may be a rodent attractor, our 3 times a day litter collection might address that to some degree, and our offer to go and litter collect in the local area again might address that.
Okay, I've got a few questions. There's quite a few things that you're proposing to do to improve the offer to work with local residents to do various mitigations. An obvious question might come from local residents. Well, if you could have done them before, why didn't you do them before? Why are you waiting now? I know you're allowed to go up to 11 o'clock anyway, but surely a responsible big brand name of KFC should want to do this anyway. So the first question is, why didn't you do it before?
Okay, so that's a very broad question in the sense that we're not clear which particular, if you like, issue of concern we might have addressed beforehand. The issue of the litter pick, we already go out once a day, and we do everything we can to pick up the litter. We're offering to do that 3 times a day and spread that wider. A lot of the issues brought in the representation have never been communicated to the premises. So we are reacting to those because we've not been aware of them initially. The applicant is a very reactive one in the sense that as soon as an issue is brought to them, they counter it, and that's as Councillor Cooper has alluded to, that's been the case in Hornhill. And when a representation in this instance raises issues, we are aware of them and we've addressed them. It's unclear what forum we could have received those concerns about prior to this application, and if we are not aware of a problem, there's no way that we could have addressed it. So we've addressed all of the concerns that have arisen here, and we can offer we could offer regular meetings through the councillor moving forward if those will assist residents in addressing any additional issues that they raise from in the coming months or coming years. We could have quarterly meetings if they wish to. We could have an open line of communication to them so that if any steps that we've put forward are not working, we can expand on those steps.
Okay, so I think sometimes when you're dealing with a large company, you go onto a website and it's obviously sometimes really hard to find a contact point, certainly for somebody who works on the local site. I think we all know that from our dealings with all sorts of big companies. So I suppose, I think what you're sort of hinting at there is there'd be a point of contact that would be known by councillors and local residents, so that they have a direct point of contact that they can actually speak to a human being, not some head office in wherever. Yeah. Is that correct?
Coming in 1 second, I will say that I draw your attention to condition 3 in the prevention of public nuisance, that a direct telephone number for the manager at the premises shall be publicly available at all times that the premises is open. How we make that available, we are very open to some discussion about, but that is a way that people can have, as you say, overcome that issue of how do I speak to the right human being? I have this concern, how can I address it?
Yeah, so I would just add as a restaurant manager that if we were ever to receive complaints from residents or even guests, that we do try our very hardest to meet those concerns. And had any concerns previously been brought to us, as we've kind of alluded to, some of these are very easy fixes for us, e.g. the additional bins, additional litter picks, light shielding, etc. But from my perspective, we weren't aware of some of the issues, such as the light pollution into bedrooms, for example. Unless that complaint is brought to us, we wouldn't have been aware of that. However, once aware, we can do everything possible to reduce that impact, basically. It's also worth noting that the restaurant contact details are readily available on our website, but also through Google. So there is a direct telephone number to the restaurant, and it doesn't take you to our head office. It is direct line to the restaurant. As we've also said, I'm happy to provide the restaurant email address, which is a direct contact to the restaurant manager, where photos can be sent in, and we will proactively go out and send evidence back that we have resolved the issue with litter as well.
Thank you. I've got to say, I don't think I've really ever used a drive-through myself. So excuse me for asking this question, which is probably a very basic question, but there's talk about the tannoy system. Now, in my mind's eye, you drive up, you speak to somebody, and you give your order, and then you perhaps drive somewhere else and then pick it up. So where's the tannoy come into this, and why do you even need a tannoy system?
So every restaurant is set up with a speaker post, which essentially you drive to the speaker post, you place your order at the speaker post, and then you go to the next window, pay, next window, collect. Them speaker posts also have a night volume, which obviously says well, the volume goes a bit lower. And, so we have that option to say after whatever was agreed, 9 p.m, we put it on night volume, which means it's a bit quieter. What we also can do is remove that functionality in total. So we can say after 9 or 11 p.m, they don't place the order at the speaker post, they drive to the first window, and then you'll be speaking to a person, which obviously will be a lot more quieter because there'll be two people talking. So there is a variable like kind of ways that we can use that function.
Thank you. You mentioned before that you would install CCTV. Who would be monitoring that? Would that be like a monitor in the restaurant somewhere that a manager would be looking at? And how would that work?
Yeah, so it's monitored through Marlow Security, so we pay a premium to have it monitored through them. They service it, but we do have access to downloading CCTV footage and watching it, and we have done in the past where we've shared loads of evidence with the police whenever needed. So yeah, it's a full system. It's serviced by an external company, but we do have access to viewing and downloading if it's needed.
So what would you cover exactly? Would you just cover the bits where you're doing the ordering system? I guess that's going to protect your staff as well for antisocial behaviour as well. But what about people in the car park who are congregating, causing problems?
We do have cameras that face.
Will you be also doing CCTV for beyond your actual the close side, but actually just nearby as well?
We can see up to a certain part of the car park. I mean, we can't see all the way to the end of it, but we can see around our car park. We've got, I think it's off the top of my head, 4 external cameras that cover the drive-through lane, the front of the restaurant, and the side of the restaurant, and the back of the restaurant.
And the retail park itself has its own CCTV system as well. So there's dual coverage effectively of the car park and extensive coverage of the building and its curtilage.
So to be explicit then, you do your immediate building and that sort of quadrant of the car park, or that sort of bit that's sort of in that quarter of the car park. Is that what you're saying that the CCTV would actually cover?
Yeah, there is CCTV covering that area, and it was also worth noting, we've had the CCTV system upgraded in the last 6 months. When we had a refurbishment, it's very, very clear quality. We can see car registrations, so had there been any issues on the car park, we can act very fast with that as well.
Thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, again, the retail park itself has CCTV in part to activate the ANPR restrictions and systems, but also from a wider crime and disorder evidence gathering perspective. And of course, if there are any incidents at any time of the day on the park, the police have ability to ask any of the retailers for their CCTV coverage and the Elgar Retail Park itself for its cameras. So that area is extensively covered by CCTV.
Okay, thank you. I think you mentioned that when the sort of like Deliveroos and those sorts of people come, they go to a different window than the general public. The general public will do the normal drive-through. What about people who want to walk up to it or cycle to it who are not Deliveroo? Can they come? Will they be able to do this at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Essentially, the answer to that currently is no, because we are only trading through one area, which is the drive-through area. Just on my experience and some of my sites that I've gone up to these times, it's none to very, very rare that someone walks up to the restaurant. I will say again, the proportion of kind of like sales volume come through Deliveroo, because obviously people can't get out, there's no public transport and stuff, so that is probably the biggest channel that we see the trade coming from.
And we wouldn't wish pedestrians to access through the drive-through for safety reasons, and the restaurant will be closed. The dining area will be closed, and so no is the sort of relatively short answer to that. It's not for pedestrians.
Does that also apply to people on cycles as well? Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about the bins, possibly putting in some bigger bins with bigger apertures and so on. Obviously, it's going to make it easier to people get the rubbish in. What about gulls? How do we prevent gull problems? Everyone in Worcester got big concerns about gulls. How do we prevent the gulls from getting all the packets and stuff out of the bin?
I mean, it's not again. It's not being brought to the table with us guys at restaurant level that we have a problem with the gulls.
I think a simple answer to that would be a gull baffle, in the sense that maybe a push door on the top of the bin that you push. Yes, yeah, and we can find those bins. We can add that into the bins.
Yeah, we do have those style of bins available. So we have the open target bins available, and we also have the push ones where the gulls wouldn't be able to pull the rubbish out. I think also the commitment from us is the regular litter picks, which rubbish strewed outside of the bins won't be there, which is really going to mitigate the gull problem itself. So if we install those proofing bins and make sure that the litter picks are done regularly, then we shouldn't see that issue, so it shouldn't be a concern.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from the panel here? Jenny? Hannah? No? No. Okay, Jenny.
Is this a franchise we're talking about here? It isn't the big KFC, is it? It's a franchise operation that labels KFC.
Yeah, we are a franchise, but we are one of the larger franchises within the group. So we've got 40 KFCs. I think some of the largest franchises get to about 70 or 80, but we are in the top proportion of holding a lot of KFC restaurants and running them for them.
So the KFC business model is to franchise their restaurants to entrepreneurs and business owners.
I just wanted absolute clarity on that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to invite Jill DeSera to ask a question, but it's going to be through the chair. So you're going to ask me the question and you'll be answering to me, okay? So this isn't a free-for-all argument, okay? So this, if you'd like to ask a question,
Thank you, Chair.
over to you.
Yes, I do have, I'd like, first of all, I would like to make a positive comment, as I really welcome the idea of open comms from anybody on the retail park. I also welcome this idea that KFC might be interested in brokering some dialogue with L&G and Savills, who run the retail park, because a lot of the problems that residents report to me then get referred and have been referred to regulatory services, litter, vermin, etc. But if the actual users, business users of the retail park could add to our voices, I think that would be very good. So I'd just like to say it's a positive thing. However, I would like to say, I guess the main thing is about the ASB, because it's surprising that KFC don't remember the incident that happened there about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where a group of lads was moved on by police over some racist comments to one of their members of staff. And that was considered an ASB incident. So I'm surprised. That was in the Worcester News. I was told about it myself. So that would be one. I'm just surprised to hear they didn't know that.
Hang on a second.
Sorry, could I just clarify, that isn't actually what we're considering in terms of objections today? That would be new evidence, I think. So I probably would recommend we don't pursue that line of questioning, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to have to take my legal advice here. So, okay, it's up to them whether they want to ask the question, but basically, yeah, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Could I just clarify with legal then, because they said there wasn't any ASB, I was querying that.
I would say, Chair, it's in your discretion, but it's not part of the representation, so I don't think the applicant has addressed it previously in that detail.
If it's my discretion, I think that it's a reasonable question to ask about something that was in the newspaper, and it'd be interesting to see a comment back about how that was handled. Is that a fair question? Okay.
If their presentation did not cover ASB, and I imagined it, then I withdraw the question, but I particularly thought they did say they were not aware of any ASB, and that was why the police hadn't objected.
Okay, so would you like to comment on that alleged ASB that was in the newspaper?
Yes, we would. Yeah, yes, we would. And before I pass it on to Harj, who does know about this incident, I'd say just 2 quick things. So that the application is that, or the comments I raised were that there were no references to antisocial behaviour from the police. There were no references to antisocial behaviour from environmental health, either through the McDonald's that opens 24 hours a day, through the KFC that currently operates up until 11 o'clock at night, and the operation of Horn Hill that goes till 2 o'clock in the morning. And the antisocial behaviour I referred to was that external to the restaurant. Harj knows about this incident, so I'll just allow him to address this. Yes.
So we did mention about CCTV, and I did say that we cooperated with the police quite recently with events. I was totally aware of the situation, and credit goes out to the team that handled it really well, and actually the person in name got arrested and dealt with appropriately. So actually whatever we've done in our remit worked well for the public and for the safety of the restaurant and the teams.
So if effectively someone was racist in the restaurant, the police were called. We provided all evidence to the police, and that individual was dealt with appropriately.
Any more questions?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Okay, but remember, you do get your chance to do your 15 minutes.
Oh
so,
no, this is about
fine,
the presentation only.
Fine,
absolutely. As I think I also heard that to support the application, the police hadn't raised concerns about the McDonald's down the road. I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about that then, Charlotte, but so it's a regular spot for donuting in the car park at the McDonald's. It's well known. The police certainly were well aware of that. If they have chosen not to make comments against this application and not remembered those incidents, I'm surprised. So I guess that's just something I want to say. It's a clarification, I suppose, against the assertion that this application will be fine because the police haven't objected to it, and they've neither said there are any problems at McDonald's, and I'm just refuting that as a statement.
Fine. Would you like to comment on that assertion?
The fact that the police, knowing about how McDonald's operate, the 24 hours operation of McDonald's, the fact that the police know how this applicant operates at Hornhill, and they have chosen not to make a representation, the very strong inference is that the police do not think this application will undermine the crime and disorder licensing objectives. The Section 182 guidance makes it clear that the police are the subject matter experts on crime and disorder, and the fact that they have not issued a representation to this is strong inference that they do not think this application will undermine the licensing objectives. There is no evidence in here about any antisocial behaviour either on the park, Elgar, or Blackpool Retail Park.
Next question.
Okay, AMPR was installed because of it, but anyway. So the next thing I want to ask, the litter picks, there's been a suggestion that the litter picks could be on the site and also around. Would the applicant be prepared to specify the streets that they would cover, and can there be any negotiation with what streets they should be?
Over to you.
Yeah, answer's yes. We'll, if there's any particular place you want us to pay more attention, we're more than happy to do so. And what's really worked well with the Hornhill application was having that direct email link to the restaurant team, so you're not going through me or through a head office, you're going straight to the restaurant teams. And we're happy to do so, yeah. Just a couple of pictures of areas, so we go to the right area in the first instance, and happy to send back, you know, what we've done.
In the first instance, let's clarify that the offer of a regular 3 times a day litter pick is on the retail park. That's a very discrete area. That's a very easy area to attach a condition to. There's a second offer to, upon request, to go off-site and collect KFC litter, and we discussed about giving a method of communication, and we can agree a condition regarding that. If a requirement is placed upon us to go off-site on a regular basis and look for litter without it being reported to us, then with some strict rules about where that is to be and where and when that is, then, you know, we would go off-site. It presents a little bit of a problem if the litter is on someone's property and, you know, we can see it but we can't get it. You know, there are legal issues there. If it's on the street, it's an easier thing to remove. But somewhat open-ended, we will walk the streets and collect litter. That requires, I think, nailing down in terms of the days or the times or the streets that we would go out. But it might be easier to say we will give communication details so that, you know, through the councillor, so that residents can say, I've got litter that someone's thrown out of their car, it's on my front garden, can someone come and get it? Because we do have the issue of obviously walking onto someone's premises and property and removing it without their consent, and so that is a challenge.
Thank you for that response. It's my understanding that when McDonald's got its licence, it did do regular street litter picks, and I thought that was what was being offered, but looks like it's not quite that.
Sorry, it can be that. I'm saying, you know, if someone says we want to, you know, if people say we want you to walk down Mason's Drive onto Draper's Court, then, you know, we would agree to that. But none of the representations refer to litter off-site. We're expanding our offer to go and collect it. But if in this meeting we agree some streets to go and litter pick, then we will do that and we will collect it off the street. So we are offering that if it is required.
I think what I'm hearing is that if this licence was agreed, then if you had these quarterly meetings and the reports you get from your local residents and your councillor said, oh, can you start doing a litter pick once a week or something, then that might be, you're not going to do that 3 times a day, but you're going to do that. But it's by negotiation discussion and you want to try and work with the local residents. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think the most important thing that we're offering is that direct communication from ourselves in the restaurant. If there is a problem spotted, regardless of where that is, if you email us and you'll have our direct contact details, we will go out and we will address that problem then and there, which is a lot easier than kind of just committing to certain roads. We're extending that offer to resolve any problems that might arise with that.
So I just want to be completely clear, just for reference, the McDonald's processes that they do go and pick, they go out and pick. They don't get asked to do it, they go and do it, and people do see them with their high-vis on, McDonald's, going around doing it on that side of the retail park. So just for information, I mean, I'm not trying to prejudge what may or may not be agreed or offered. I'd like to ask a question that might involve licensing, Reg Services 2. There was a suggestion that if the tannoy at night causes a problem, it can be turned off. Is that something that can be enforceable all the time, is my question.
I think they said that they would apply all these conditions the whole time. Is that correct or not? Let's clarify that.
Yes is the short answer, and I'm trying to think of appropriate wording. It might be that, okay, I'm thinking on the hoof here, but how about something along the lines of from 2100 the volume is on the tannoy is turned down, and from 2300 the tannoy is not used.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah, so that would be an enforceable condition, and although strictly speaking the 2100 is before the licence kicks in, it would be a promise, it would be an enforceable condition on the premises licence. I think that is legally binding. And then from 2300 it is turned off. So there's effectively it's turned down then turned on.
Just one other point to make, but it is relevant to the bins thing and the question of gulls. I'm sure that the applicant must be aware that the second largest population of gulls in the city resides on Blackpool. So gulls are definitely a problem, and any bins that are installed have to be gull-proof. So I just wanted to say that because it was mentioned.
And let's overcome Gullgate with a promise that the bins that we install will be baffled, gull baffles will be installed. And if any are currently on site that aren't, they can be retrofitted.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? WRS, legal? No? Fine, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for taking the questions. Oh, sorry.
Could we just make the statement at 14, if that's okay, about, obviously, the councillor is known to you all, just to confirm that no one's discussed it with her. Thank you.
Okay, so as Councillor Sarah is a fellow councillor on the council, we obviously know her from other committees and so on. So would you like to just make a quick statement about?
I confirm I haven't discussed this issue with Councillor Sarah.
And I also confirm the same thing as well.
I'm happy to confirm I haven't discussed this issue with Councillor Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so I've given out a pack of information that you've all got. There's an executive summary, there's some detailed objections, there's even a table at the back just to summarise. So I'm not intending to read through all of this line by line, but what I would like to do is just highlight certain points, because I'm assuming everybody's read it, so I hope that that's the right assumption, especially the committee. But I'd like to explain where the pictures fit in, because that's not necessarily obvious. And also to give a little bit of a flavour of what life is like beyond these words for the people who are living opposite this KFC. So yes, I am objecting on behalf of residents living close by, and the first picture I'd like you to look at is a little aerial map, and I've circled the KFC, which is on the corner of Bilford Road and Blackpole Road, and number 1 Masons Drive, and that is the residence of one of the objectors, and there's houses even closer than that, and I think you can see that it is, to say that this drive-through is not in a residential area is I don't think accurate. It is a residential area and it's pretty close to it. This picture is just showing, at this corner, this is the border of the land of the resident, and that's the KFC. So it's really not a great distance. It's also a nice little picture of some of the traffic issues that exist, which is part of what people have to deal with and live with. And because the traffic is quite often like that, at a standstill, our friend in the picture, the rat, sauntered across from the retail park, from the Elgar retail park, went into one of my other residents' gardens. This was in the daytime, and they were suitably horrified and killed it. So this is a daytime rat seen to come from the retail park. I mean, seeing rats in daytime is really unusual, or it should be. And I guess if they've been poisoned, they sometimes look for water, but it can be an indicator that there's quite a lot of them. Probably about a couple of years ago, some shrubbery was removed from the retail park. I don't know if some maintenance was done, and I'm not sure if it was before your time there, but an absolute plague of rats then descended from the retail park into people's gardens across the road into Masons Drive. So, yeah, there have been existing complaints to WRS as well, but not only the fact that there are a lot of rats, especially actually also on the other side of the retail park, on the Blackpole side, but they're also very large. So, yeah, there is a problem with that. I'd like to just touch on the proximity. I talked about the proximity to the homes. Yeah, the objections are coming here because of going into operation in what should really be hours of calm and quiet. You know, post 11, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 in the morning, these are times when noise will travel hugely, more than it would do in the daytime, and people living that close, including people who even now with their windows shut still do hear the tannoy. Makes me appreciate the offer to turn it down at least anyway. So that's a nighttime sensitivity point. The cooking odours absolutely have been always prevalent around the area. One of my residents who lives in Salters Close, and you can just about see I've marked Salters Close on the little map, so it's down the road a little bit from Masons Drive. Around here, certainly during the summer when they're in the garden, the smell is very prevalent. Perhaps not so much at other times of year, but certainly and most of the day. So that having that addressed would be, even for normal operation, would be really helpful. The light pollution, I would imagine that where the residents are complaining about lights from the car park, it might be from the car park outside of the KFC itself, where they might be seeing that, and I think that could happen. Anything, yeah, it's an open space, obviously. The litter we have talked about quite a lot, so I don't think I'll push that any further. Just suffice to say that the bins overflowing in the retail park is a regular thing, and any pressure that any of the business owners can put on the retail park to empty their bins, perhaps late in the evening, so that things don't overflow overnight, would be helpful as well for everybody, I would think. But it is a problem. So we have made existing complaints to site management, and they have come to regulatory services and the refuse team and environmental services regarding the litter, the vermin, etc. But they've principally gone to Savills, who manage the site for LNG, rather than yourselves. I admit they haven't necessarily come to you. Now we've got the precedent and relative impact. We strongly objected to a Starbucks drive-through a couple of years ago, and the planning committee did reject it, principally for safety reasons and also for all the other concerns that we're raising here today, adding to problems, especially traffic congestion. The planning inspector then allowed it, but with the important condition that they were not allowed to open beyond 8 in the evening. And I believe that was because they fully recognised the residents' concerns and the difficulties in living with businesses operating late into the evening and people living so close to it. So I think that is an important thing to remember. So the public nuisance objections, the noise from the tannoy, yes, perhaps that can be mitigated somewhat, but it would still be there for a lot of the time. The cooking odours, the light pollution, the night disturbance and the litter. I just want to say in conclusion, when considered cumulatively, the impacts of extending trading hours, noise, cooking, odours, light pollution, traffic disturbance, litter and vermin would result in a significant ongoing detriment to residential amenity. Where businesses may provide employment and conveniences, benefits cannot outweigh the cause harm by late night trading. A drive-through this close to residential properties is incompatible with trading in 2 a.m. without causing considerable disturbance, in my view. I don't have anything further to say, given all the other questions that I've asked. I think we would be just repeating.
Thank you. Have you got any questions?
Not at this point.
No.
I don't think so, thank you.
Okay. The residents that you've spoken to are complaining, I think, about late night stuff, noise, litter, cars revving and things like that. So that's with the current 11 o'clock. How big a problem is it? I mean, how many times do people complain about this sort of stuff? Is it happened once? Is it a regular occurrence? How would you characterise the amount of complaints you've had over the last year or so?
So I'd say the number of complaints that I've had have not necessarily been excessive. I think everybody was so demoralised by the Starbucks decision that they just think these things can't be stopped and we just have to live with it. But I know for a fact that they are living with it, and it's not at all attractive to them to have the prospect of this extending into the early hours of the morning.
Hello.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering how many streets you think are affected within your ward, if you can sort of give us any indication, please.
So I think from the KFC point of view, there would be litter right through Sadler's Walk, for example. We litter pick that on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, so we see that a lot. Sadler's Walk is just beyond, a little further up Goldsmith Road. It's a big estate. So that would be one area that I think would benefit hugely, as well as the immediate roads, of course. I should imagine anybody living on the other side too. I wouldn't be aware of that, but Councillor Mason Lawrence might be in Bilford Road end of things.
To clarify for the applicants, that's without your ward, so Bilford Road, etc., is St Stephen Ward, so that's why you wouldn't be aware. Just to clarify for the applicant. Thank you.
I think I've got a question. What was it? I did have a question. I will come back to it in a moment, having a senior moment here. Yeah, I'm going to have to come back to you when I've got more questions. So, would you like to ask a question or put any points back to Councillor De Siro?
I do appreciate the questions are to Councillor De Sarah through the chair, so so I'm going to address you, but obviously, okay. The first is a comment. We can endeavour, if there is a condition about regular meetings with you, we can endeavour to bring the managing agent to those. We can't compel them to come along, but that might be a good thing for us to try and do, so that there's a tripartite approach to this. So that's the comment, but if there are regular meetings, we will try and do that. The questions, really, it's all about, you raised the issue of the Starbucks appeal, and it's a point of clarification that when I read that representation and the comments there, you suggest that the planning inspector restricted the hours. What they actually did was to allow the appeal in the terms that the applicant had applied for. So they didn't restrict it to 8 p.m. The paragraph 36 of the decision says that the restricting opening hours of the appeal scheme to those requested in the appellant's application form. So they granted the appeal in the terms that it was applied for. And then in various paragraphs in that decision, the planning inspector says that interested parties have raised concern regarding noise and disturbance and odour from nearby residents, and they found there was limited substantive evidence of that. And then they talked about also the same for vermin and unreasonable litter. So these concerns were raised to the planning inspectorate, and the planning inspectorate didn't hear evidence of those.
Can I just stop you for a second there? So if you're going to ask a question, that's what this is what this point is here. But if you're doing some sort of rebuttal sort of stuff, I think that's better to be done in a summing up at the end. So if you maybe you leave that comment you had there and raise it at that point. This is questions for Councillor De Sarah.
I appreciate you keeping me in check. That was somewhat rebuttal rather than a question. But the question really is that, for point of clarification, actually what the what the planning inspectorate did was not restrict the hours, but to grant the appeal as applied for. So
Okay, that is a statement, not a question. Okay.
sorry, let me try and rephrase that. Isn't it true that?
Oh.
That's right.
Okay.
Isn't it true that?
Yeah, go on then. Yep.
I'd like to answer that question. I don't think that's true at all. I think they wanted to open till 11. And I think that might be an earlier paperwork.
I think you can sum up when you get to your point. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to clarify. Obviously, planning matters have very limited intervention with our licensing powers, and actually all of our applications are on our merits anyway, so what's happened at Starbucks wouldn't be relevant to us.
No, fine. I have now remembered my questions. Okay, so thank you for the time. Okay, the picture of the rat. Can you be a bit more explicit about where the picture was taken?
Yes, it was taken in the garden of somebody who lives in Salters Close.
Salted Close, fine. Okay, my other question is, I don't know the area that well, although I do go to both of those two retail parks. So, yeah, so obviously, I think what you've said is there's some evidence of boy racers beating up at the McDonald's and doing donuts and things like that. And can you sort of give any sort of comment about the difference or the similarities about the two different car parks, about why one might be better than the other, or why this would be the same as that one, or can you sort of comment on about the design of the car parks and why you would think that if there's a problem there, it would also be outside KFC as well?
I don't necessarily think that there will be a donut problem at Elgar. It's not the same space that there is on Blackpool. And I was really just raising it as an example of how ASB has occurred and police have been called on a frequent basis in the past. I believe that since they introduced AMPR, that might have reduced, but I haven't heard of any recent reports of that. So it was a context comment, I guess. The other thing I'd say about the Blackpool part in the difference, it's extremely poorly lit, the car park itself. Maybe these days that discourages people from doing donuts, I don't know.
Are there any other questions? Regulatory services, legal? No? Okay. So I think now we're at the point where you get a chance to do summing up. And I think that comes first of all from from you, Jill, I think.
Chair, there's not a formal provision for the objectors to make a further final statement. It's normally the licensing officer and the applicant.
Fine.
But obviously you have discretion to change the running order.
Is there anything else you want to add or not? No.
I would just beg this committee to consider the amenity of residents who do not want to have to put up with noise, smells, etc. From 11 till 2 in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So it's your chance now to sum up, rebut, and make any other comments you want to make.
Thank you, Chair. I think in summing up, I think the committee is sitting effectively in the, very analogously as Blackpool Road, in the sense that there is commercial on one side and there is some residential on the other, and your job is to balance those sort of competing interests. And I am grateful to Councillor De Serra, who has commented upon things like how welcome litter picks will be, how welcome regular communications would be. And it's the council's or the committee's job to find a way of ensuring that a commercial operator can run their business and employ people and bring economic benefit, and whilst not undermining any of the licensing objectives. I would suggest that with the application as it has been applied for, with amendments of additional bins, with addition of additional litter picks, with addition of, if we say quarterly meeting with the councillor, and with, if we can bring them with the landlord's managing agent, that those will enable the balance, or that will enable the balance to be struck between the residents and the commercial interests, bearing in mind that we've offered to put up a fence to ensure that the headlights of the drive-through don't shine into people's windows, that we've agreed to, from 2300 to block off to waiting bays to ensure people don't shine their headlights into local residents, the rear of local residents' properties, that we've agreed to turn the tannoy down from 2100 and from 2300 to turn it off entirely, to litter pick upon demand in the local area, and to litter pick on a regular basis if the resident meetings provide a route or provide an area that needs to go into. So we've got the picking up on demand and picking up routinely in the future if the residents meet, or if the meetings with Councillor De Serra require those to be done or highlight a need for those to be done. So as I have said, the committee is able to draw inference from the fact that environmental protection and the police have not lodged a representation, despite knowing about the operation of this site and this location, how similar premises at McDonald's operate, and how this applicant operates at its Hornhill location. And therefore, with the amendments that we've proposed throughout this hearing, I ask the committee to grant the application on that basis.
Thank you. So I've got a question for regulated services then. So it's very easy for people to offer all sorts of things in a meeting here, but 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you know, how much grip have we got about enforcing these things? I mean, you know, what will it take to, in terms of the bite we've got to control this if things start to slip away from any of these conditions that have been agreed, if we do agree?
Thanks, Chair. As the applicant's representative has said, the licence applies to the licensable conditions. The licensable activities. Strictly speaking, the conditions would apply only to that period of time where the licensable activities are taking place. It's probably a moot point for myself and Charlotte to discuss whether conditions that don't apply during those periods would actually be enforceable through the licence. Can you answer that straight
Is
away,
there any sort
Charlotte?
of
or-
review, or, I mean, do things come back up for review at any point? Because,
It's always possible to review a licence if there's if one of the licensing objectives is the operation of the licence is infringing on the licensing objective. Yes, so in 6 months' time, if there's a huge problem with antisocial behaviour, nuisance, problems with children, and any of the four basically, then yes, any person can request a review of the licence, and we come back here and basically follow this procedure again based on the evidence presented at the time.
can I just, so to clarify then, who can ask for a review? So let's say like this was agreed in, say, a year's time or 2 years' time, and things slip away. What could trigger a review of the licence to then bring it back to a committee?
To answer the first question, any person can request a review. So my mother, who lives Barnesway, she could do that if she felt that the licensing objectives were being infringed. Any responsible authority could do that also. The caveat is that as a licensing authority, part of my job is to review a review application and determine whether it is, in the first instance, meeting that criteria to move forward with a review. Is there enough evidence to take the application to a review is what we would be looking at. And obviously, in the first instance, we would be erring towards the licensing objectives being enforced. So if there's a suggestion that they might not be, we would then start to look more seriously. If it's vexatious, if it's repetitious, we can refuse it straight away. It's just, that's a decision that has to be made on the fly, basically, when you receive the application. But strictly, and to answer the question, anybody, and with evidence, basically, we could end up here with that.
And if I can add some...
I think perhaps some of it has been addressed, but I think ultimately, I think what the officer was trying to get to is you're only considering 11 till 2, but if the conditions were breached, that wouldn't prevent a review. It would just be that you can only deal with a licence that's 11 till 2 o'clock. You couldn't deal with anything during the day. You couldn't then punish them for, the worst you could do is take the evening licence off, but we're obviously getting ahead of ourselves a bit here.
And to clarify and to add more comfort, a breach of a condition attached to a premise licence is a criminal offence punishable by an unlimited fine of up to 6 months in prison. So there's that avenue that any responsible authority would have. So these things have meaning, but they have teeth. If an application is brought either by a responsible authority or by another person, then the evidence will be put to the committee at that stage as to how the licensing objectives are being undermined, and your ultimate sanction is to revoke a premise licence. So there's a lot of teeth to these conditions, and these conditions do not fall away in a year's time or 2 years' time. They're there for the life of the premise licence. So they're always there, they're ongoing obligations.
Okay, I think we're at the end of our hearing now. I'm just going to give just one last check. Is there any other questions or queries you want to raise?
I just want to go back to the fumes because you've agreed to all sorts of moderations to try and make the community more comfortable. But there's still the smell, and all the things that you suggested, the new equipment to block odours was not mentioned. Is that because you don't intend to do it? Because there's a smell now during the day, there'll be a smell at night. So even if it means that you put it in so that you don't have a smell at night, the community will benefit by hopefully it not smelling during the day as well. So how's that going to be dealt with? Because I think it's quite a big issue as far as I'm concerned, at least.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. And I think it does seem quite a while ago now, but I think we did address the issue of smells from the extraction unit. What my client has agreed to do is to get their engineers in to review their extraction unit and to take all advice from them about if there are smells coming out of there, to address that at source, you know, to to amend the system if the system is, and Haj talked about perhaps increasing the service frequency and perhaps look at whether there's additional equipment that could be, sort of put onto the roof to mitigate any smells. I did raise the point that when that is done, the benefit will be at all hours that the premises is operating. And then the stick is that there's a condition being added, which we spoke about just a moment ago, breach of which will be a criminal offence and could be lead to the premises being reviewed, that no fumes, steam or odours shall be emitted from the licensed premises so as to cause a nuisance to the people living or working in the area. So there's an assurance that that system will now be, reviewed, and a premise condition can be, has been proposed from day one that we will stand by that so that no fumes will cause a disturbance to local residents. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Chair. So I think lots of points have been addressed, but I really echo Councillor Barnes's concerns. That for me is a sticking point around the fumes. Thank you.
Well, again, I hope that I've just answered that in respect of if we fall beneath the standard, our premise licence can be revoked. And so it's on us to ensure that we comply with that condition. And that condition, when imposed, will benefit residents even before 2300. And we will get engineers out and we will review that system and add to it as we need to ensure that there are no smells.
So I've got further, can I just dig in a bit more on this? So when you're talking about things like noise, you can talk about a decibel. You can say, we can't be above this. Is there an equivalent of odours and smells? Is there a sort of standard that says, because otherwise what you're saying to us is, yes, we're going to review it, we're going to look at it, we're going to try to do something there, we're going to get an engineer to have a look at it, and we're going to service it more often, potentially additional baffles in there and so on. That sounds great. But it might come back as, oh, it's going to cost X, lots of money. And you say, well, we're not going to do that. So in terms of a condition, it'd be quite hard to write this in terms of you could come back later on and say, oh, we couldn't do it. Yeah. So I'm perhaps a little bit asking you, but I'm also asking Regulatory Services, is there a standard or a number, or is there anything that you can actually have as a actual line that says this is an acceptable standard, this isn't an acceptable standard? Because otherwise we're in a bit of a grey area in terms of how we could document any condition. So I can ask you first. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a licensing officer. Nuisance is not a specialty. That's environmental health's position on that. I would assume there is some way of establishing odour is a nuisance. What that is, I'm afraid I don't know. If the committee want to have that information before you make a decision, I can perhaps try and find that out for you. But yeah, my understanding is I would expect that to be the case, but the establishment of nuisances is an environmental health matter, and its primary noise. You mentioned decibels, for instance. That requires operation of a lot of technical equipment and a lot of other parameters that I just don't understand. So, thank you.
Charlie, do you want to keep on this?
Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to sort of touch on a nuisance has a statutory framework and also a common law framework. It's a very complicated scheme, but what the condition that the applicant is currently offering is saying that if they do cause a nuisance from their smells, they've breached their condition. So the obligation then will be on them to ensure that it doesn't cause the nuisance, and they will presumably engage the appropriate experts to determine that. But it is a very sort of specific framework where you have experts that do this work. So I'm not sure anyone in this committee would be able to provide a suitable answer today.
Isn't it quite subjective though to say whether it was a nuisance or
It's
not?
actually an objective test to nuisances. So, but it would be experts in the field who would
All right.
none of us will be able to give an answer.
I'm going to ask the applicants, just with their knowledge of the fast food industry, to
Before I sort of turn it over to Haj, I'd say we've offered this committee to take responsibility for this. Failure to comply with the condition we've offered will lead potentially to the licence being revoked. So it's serious. We understand it's serious, and we will take it extremely seriously, because we don't wish to be back in front of a committee with explaining why the fumes were not abated. In respect of whether there's an industry standard, before I turn it over to Haj, they operate 40 such restaurants. They have, quite an extensive system. This restaurant, no doubt, can have its extraction unit revisited. And do you know of...
Yeah, again, to answer that question, I don't have the answer, but what I can say is that we've not neglected the equipment. It's getting serviced on time. It's doing what it should be doing. However, the question that we want to pose to the engineers is there anything else we can do? Is that another bit we can add on? Because clearly what we're doing right now isn't working. Is it a 3-month service plan instead of a 6-month service plan? I take it when they clean the filters out, they're more effective. So these are the things that we can put in place because it's clearly not working what we've got at the moment. But yeah, in terms of costs, whatever it takes for us to try and get this equipment up and running, we're more than willing to do that.
So obviously fumes is a big issue. We've got a very enforceable condition. We've got a commitment to actually, look at that system again, and I hope that assuages any concerns.
Just to quote back to what you just said, is anything, whatever the cost, we're going to do it. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I've just got to sum up the legal advice if I can. So most of it we've touched on throughout the hearing anyway, but you should only have regard to representations which promote the licensing objective. You must consider each application on its merits and in accordance with our statement of licensing policy. As you know, this is not within the cumulative impact area, so the special policy does not apply, so your presumption is in favour of granting, unless to do so would undermine one or more of the licensing objectives. You must only consider things that fall within your remit, within your jurisdiction. You should give no less weight to the representations that you've received in writing. You must consider the Section 182 guidance and our statement of licensing policy, and then take the steps that you consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, and either grant the application as requested, which, as you've heard, has had additional conditions offered during the committee hearing today. You can modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, or you can reject the application in whole or in part. I would just add you should not modify or add conditions just because it is desirable to do so. It must be appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Right, so at this point we're going to adjourn the meeting so that we can do our private deliberations. We're going to ask you to go out to the room, and we'll call you back in again. Not quite sure when, depending on how long it takes for us to deliberate. Okay, so...
Many thank you, Committee.
Thank you. Call you in later. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming back. We've considered in detail all the representations made and from both sides, and we've given quite a lot of weight to the mitigations which have been offered, both in the original conditions but also the mitigations which have been offered today. And on that basis, with the following conditions I'm going to read out, we are going to grant this licence to 2 a.m. These conditions will be set out properly in a legal document in writing, so you'll get those in due course in the following few days. But just in summarising, what the conditions are is that you will organise a quarterly meeting with local councillors to discuss any issues and concerns that have been raised by local residents. You will provide a contact email for the manager, which will be publicly available, but also given to local councillors. You will undertake a review of the extraction system and bring it up to the highest standards that are reasonable, practical to prevent and reduce the amount of smells and odours that are currently there today by improving the system, potentially by making it service more often and cleaning and so on. You will provide as many bins as reasonably necessary within the local area of your site for additional bins, and these will be gilt-proof bins and branded with your name on them. You will provide a fence or some sort of screening that will be erected to prevent headlights from interfering with local residents in nearby housing. You will eliminate the noise of the tannoy by turning the noise down between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m, and then from 11 p.m. there'll be no use of the tannoy. You will provide 3 types of litter picking. The first one would be daily. You will do 3 litter picks a day in the immediate vicinity of the building and just outside the building. You'll have a regular, which we deem as being weekly, of the retail park. And then on demand, you will do a litter pick that will be requested by either the councillor or local residents via the email. And then you will do in the immediate local vicinity of the local housing around nearby. If there is a particular grot spot or something that develops over a period of time, then you'll be able to do those litter picks and support local residents to keep those litter problems down. I think I've covered all the conditions we talked about. I haven't missed anything out. So on that basis, we're going to grant the licence. Okay.
Many thanks indeed. I can confirm we've already given contact details to the councillor, and upon this decision being produced, we'll start to work out the first meeting and then the cadence, thereafter. Okay. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry? Fine. Thank you very much.